All right, folks, we got to take a minute and discuss one of the most overlooked branches of the motion picture business.
A soliloquy for every movie, for Casablanca, Tommy Boy. He's here, it's him, it's Andrew Toy. It's Andrew Toy.
There is a core flaw in the MPAA of the Motion Picture Association system. What the MPAA does is it tries to compress wildly different types of content, violence, language, sex, tone, into one single label, which you've seen before. And the system that the MPAA operates from absolutely guarantees inconsistency and subjectivity. In other words, films that are rated R should often be PG-13. And there's a lot of PG movies that should be rated G and vice versa.
They come back. They go around again. They just go round and round. Round and round.
So, here's looking at you, MPAA. The world might have forgotten you, but I haven't. Real quick, I have a housewarming note. I had mentioned in a previous video that there's this show called One Piece. I saw toys at Target, and then I saw later on online that this One Piece show has some nudity, and I was calling it out. Somber P wrote to me and said that there's actually no nudity in it, but the anime and the manga are indeed very lewd. But apparently the live action doesn't have anything like that. What the live action apparently has is gore and language. I don't know anything about One Piece other than I tried one on once when I was 8, and it didn't feel very comfortable.
I'm just trying something.
Anyway, if you're of the One Piece culture, just be aware of what your kids are watching and what you're showing your kids. So once again, thank you, Somber Pete. So we've got family movies that sneak in nightmare fuel that would traumatize adults. Jump! No! And then you have R-rated movies that can practically be shown to a classroom of third graders.
Now he said sick'em boy, but what I heard was sick balls.
Get off my plane. That when the president does it, it's not illegal.
Beach walking, huh?
You make me very happy.
So the more you look into this, the more obvious it becomes. This system that the MPAA operates from is not objective. It is subjective and inconsistent, and it's heavily influenced by things that do not have kids or families' best interest in mind. Now, before I go on with this topic, I just want to make it clear, I appreciate a good grown-up film, and I completely understand that many movies would not be the same if they were toned down to a lesser rating.
I'm pregnant.
With emotion?
You're still using my Velcro labels. Aw.
Have you seen what it's like out there, Murray?
So to that end, I have no interest in seeing a PG-13 Quentin Tarantino film. I believe Joker did so well because of its R rating, and if Disney had neutered Deadpool and Wolverine to a PG-13 rating, that very well may have been the first boycott to ever succeed. On the same token, if Ethan Hawke had started unaliving civilians in the next Mission Impossible movie, then count me out. It wouldn't be consistent with the character nor the tone of the franchise. And more importantly, I wouldn't be able to watch them with my kids since that's sort of a tradition of ours now. And so when we talk about how wonky and backwards some of these movie ratings are, there's a few reasons that are at play here, and some do overlap. I'm going to start with the least likely and move up to the most likely, and I do believe that there is ounces of truth in each reason that I give. So number one, the one that most people talk about is you have the Hollywood is grooming kids angle. This is an argument you hear a lot, especially, sadly, coming from the conservative Christian group. A lot of people think that Hollywood is trying to indoctrinate or push some sort of agenda onto our kids. Now look, there may be some truth to this, but I don't think this is the main driver of the rating system. To that degree, what I think is more accurate is that a lot of people working in entertainment are just morally out of sync with a lot of parents not working in entertainment. And so a lot of times we have to give the benefit of the doubt and believe that not everybody in Hollywood is purposefully malicious. It's just the reality they live in. We're all shaped by what we believe, how we were raised, and of course, what feels normal to us. And so if a studio like Pixar includes something that seems wildly out of place to most families, to the creators who worked on the film, that just might be their everyday life. Now, I might not agree with everything they include, but at the same time, we're not forced to watch these movies. Nobody is marching you or your kids into a movie theater. Contrary to current popular belief, we still live in a democracy and are blessed with the system where we can still choose what we watch or not watch. Like, I wasn't forced to watch Brokeback Mountain. I just did it out of my own will. Just kidding, I did. I'm so immature. Number 2, the system isn't neutral. The industry, in effect, is grading itself. So here's a few things that most people don't know. The MPAA isn't some independent watchdog. It's an industry organization, which means they're basically rating their own movies. And so, of course, that creates a conflict of interest because now the goal isn't what's appropriate or not appropriate for kids. It's also what rating will help this movie succeed the most at the box office. Number 3, and probably the most obvious, there is a PG-13 sweet spot. When in Hollywood you follow the money, that's where it leads you to. PG-13 is the moneymaker. If you have a PG movie, it's probably going to feel a little childish, and so you're going to lose some adults, or maybe just one parent takes the kids instead of both of them having to suffer through a child film. If your movie is rated R, it cuts out most of the younger class, and so you lose ticket sales. But PG-13, now that's the sweet spot. A lot of parents are morally flexible, so they'll take their young kids. Teens will definitely show up. Adults still show up because a lot of adults, like myself, don't know how to grow up, and this is where studios make the most money. And I think this is why Hollywood loves Steven Spielberg so much, because I believe he was the one who came up with the PG-13 rating back in the late 80s. And I'll admit, I've fallen into this trap. There's a movie that looks interesting and then I see it's PG. I'm going to second guess myself before I watch it. But a lot of times that does me a disservice because some of the best movies made in the last 10 years have been PG. And if it's G-rated, forget about it. No one is going to go to that. In fact, they don't make G-rated movies anymore. I looked. The only G-rated film that came out in 2025 that wasn't a re-release was called Gabby's Dollhouse. Felix, you liked that movie, right? My son's shaking his head no. He's like, Now, I will say, it'll be really interesting to see what the MPAA does with Toy Story 5, because the first 2 Toy Story films were rated G, and then, surprisingly, the third one was rated G. There was an MPAA spokesperson that came out after the fact and said, yeah, we probably should have given this a higher rating of PG. But they probably just figured, well, let's just stick with what works. The first 2 movies got Gs. Let's give this a G as well so we get the same types of audiences in. And then even more surprisingly, Toy Story 4 was rated G. In a world where all animated movies are now PG, that just stuck out as the anomaly, as the only G-rated movie out there. And so, yeah, I'm not saying they're going to give Toy Story 5 PG-13. Even if it is a G-rated film, are they going to hike that rating up to a PG to hopefully boost a few more sales? That'll be interesting to see what they do. But I'll never forget, the time where I was most annoyed by how poorly the MPAA rated a movie was Ice Age. Ice Age was rated PG. I don't know if anybody could tell me why Ice Age is rated PG way back when animated films were still primarily G rated. This is how like small my brain is. Like it just hangs on to that one little thing that probably nobody else on this planet has ever given a second thought. All right, so moving on to number 4. This might surprise some of you, maybe not, but the studios, they literally edit to the rating. Contrary to what people probably believe, movies don't just get ratings, they negotiate them. So for instance, a studio will make a film, the MPAA deems it as rated R, so then it goes back to the studio, they cut out some bad words, resubmit it, and then you've got a PG-13 rating. And that, as we've established earlier, is where you want to be. That's the money-making rating. Titanic would be a perfect example of that. I believe there were a lot of negotiations between Fox and the MPAA that very well should have been rated R, and I still think so today. But the rumor I've heard, and I tend to believe, is that Fox paid a shipload of money to get that PG-13 rating slapped onto the poster. And boy, did that pay off. Especially for 13-year-old me.
I want you to draw me like one of your French girls.
So basically, the rating system is based primarily off of, did you say this word too many times? Or did we see too much of Kevin Costner's ass? Might want to cut that out if we want to get a PG-13 rating. Or, of course, unless you're James Cameron, you can have your cake and eat it too and get an Academy Award.
I'm the king of the world!
All right, number 5, the F word. I'm assuming you know what that word is. You use it once and you've got a problem. And this is the most ridiculous part of the system. Take the King's Speech, for instance. That's rated R. Did you know that? Probably not. It's rated R because in one scene, Colin Firth says the F word like 10 times. And honestly, it's kind of the best part of the movie. It's really funny.
Do you know the F word?
Fornication.
But you take that one scene out, that's one of the R-rated movies that you can show to a classroom of third graders who are studying world history or World War II. There's no violence, there's no sexual content. And aside from that one scene, there's literally no cursing. And the same goes for planes, trains, and automobiles.
I really don't care for the way you're speaking to me.
I showed that one to my kids on TV years ago when they were pretty tiny. And the TV censors did what they did best. They cut out the one scene where Steve Martin cursed a whole bunch of times, and it was a fun-filled family adventure of a film. Meanwhile, over here in PG-13 land, we have buildings blowing up, civilizations collapsing, characters getting tortured, nightmare creatures running afoul. But hey, no, don't worry. We only said the F word once, so, we're good. We've got our PG-13 rating. And to that end, if in the movie, the character's house is crumbling around them because of an atomic blast that completely obliterated the state next to them. All their friends and family have died. The beams are coming down on you. Your skin is catching fire. All PG-13 stuff, mind you. And your character isn't yelling, "Oh, fucking shit, going all hairy from Home Alone."
What?
Then I'm gonna argue that your movie's not very realistic. Sorry, Felix, you had to hear all that. That's my point. Or take, for example, I showed my 11-year-old son War of the Worlds last night, the Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg one. That's a pretty freaky movie, he's never been scared in a movie before, but I asked him in the middle, I was like, "Are you doing okay? Is this scaring you too much?" He goes, for the first time ever, he goes, "Yeah, but it's so cool." So take that and then compare it to a family favorite Halloween film, Hocus Pocus. Now, besides the fact that I think that movie is utter trash and complete rubbish, with my kids being the ages they are at 11 and 12, I'm still not comfortable letting them watch it. I have no problem with, fantasy witchcraft and, Hocus Pocus, mumbo jumbo, all that stuff. None of that is an issue. I love Halloween. My problem with Hocus Pocus being a Disney PG rated film is that there's so many innuendos, and its language and its jokes, it's a lot more in line with The Office rather than a standard Disney film you would think would be family fare. Man, I hate that. I hate that movie. Does anybody else hate Hocus Pocus? Or can somebody tell me, please, politely, what's the hype over that movie? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
Hopefully I'm making my case that this is a completely broken metric. Cultural bias. We have violence versus everything else. One of the biggest consistencies is that the system is extremely lenient when it comes to violence than any other form of content. You can blow up planes, show intense combat in the heat of the battle, and still be PG-13. But say the wrong word too many times as your guts are falling out. If you say the F word one too many times, you're getting penalized with an R rating. And so I don't really think that reflects the way a lot of parents think. Number 6, how do you properly measure fear? When it comes to the scary stuff, this is a huge blind spot. Some G and PG movies have scenes that are genuinely terrifying, that people from my generation are still traumatized by. There's just no real category for actual scary stuff. So there's a legend that when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs first came out in theaters in the mid-1930s, movie theater managers had to continually swap out the theater seats because kids would be watching the transformation of the witch or any other scary scene in that movie, and they would drench the seat with pee, forcing the management to have to switch those seats out. Honestly, can you blame them? It's a scary-ass movie. And the animated movie directly following that was Pinocchio, which was literally banned from Germany because it was too terrifying. But don't worry, kids here in America can ingest that content like it's Red 40, no big deal. Or take the Toy Story 4 ventriloquist dummies. A reminder that that movie is rated G. Do those dummies still scare you, Felix?
No, but they did scare me when I was like 9.
Yeah, poor kid. He saw the movie when he was 9, and they really scared him for a bit. Or when they're walking with Gabby Gabby through the antique shop and they're playing all the music from The Shining. Like, whoa, that is awesome stuff, but it's pretty scary. Or look at any older Pixar movie. You know, they created the Best Animated Film for the Academy Awards. You can watch that video here. But they won't create a separate rating system to measure or gauge the intensity in some of these animated films. We get some warnings that there might be some flashing lights in a movie, which is very much the definition of film, but no warnings that this may traumatize your child? Even though this is PG-13, have you seen Hoppers? Hoppers just might be the never-ending story for this new generation. I'm starting to think the G rating actually stands for good luck. Just like any insurance policy, the rules are vague on purpose. There's no clear system, like 3 bad words equals PG-13, 5 bad words makes it R, which would be stupid anyway. Instead, it's all based on tone, context, feeling. Now, that might sound nice, but that leads to wildly inconsistent results. This is my favorite. The system is basically a black box. Let me explain. The board of members on the MPAA is small and anonymous. We don't know the people who are rating these movies. And they never explain their decisions. Now, they have made little progress in the way of this. Remember going to like Blockbuster or your local video store? For me, it was Video Depot. And like, if you're a kid and you're going by yourself, you're looking on the back of all the boxes trying to find the R-rated movies, but you want to know why it's R-rated, you know, and if you're a 13-year-old boy, you know the thing you're looking for. But unfortunately, a lot of times it just said R and it didn't give the reason why, which is dumb too, because if you're going in with your family to pick a movie for pizza night, I think mom and dad would like to know why this movie is PG-13. Finding the reason for the rating on the back of the box was like finding candy in the Easter egg. But now I've noticed for the last 15 or 20 years or so, they have remained consistent in always including the reason why the movie got the rating that it did. But even that's flawed. If you look at the reason why A Beautiful Mind is rated PG-13, one of the reasons given is for sexual content. And if you've seen that movie at all, there is nothing sexual in that movie. So even that shows that they're not always on top of their game with that little extra bit of accountability. You're just supposed to accept the letter grade that they give you. No transparency, no accountability, and you have absolutely no chance to appeal. Like, what are the chances that the members of the MPAA are even parents? Like, I had wildly different ideas of what I wanted to show my kids before I became a father. Now that I am a father, I'm a lot more protective of what I let my children see. Let the record show that if my wife were here, she would be laughing at that statement hysterically. But now you see how the current MPAA rating system acts objectively in a completely subjective environment. Like, who's to say that the robot mayor at the end of Hoppers doesn't warrant a PG-13 rating? And I'm not even going to jump into the statute of limitations. I think we all agree that if Jaws or Gremlins came out today, those movies would be PG-13 or higher. But no, kids can find those on streaming and hey, it's rated PG. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'll watch it. But going back to that board of the MPAA, I honestly think that they just watch the trailer for these movies when they're sent their way. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Every time you see a trailer, you know what it's going to be rated. It's very clear. They probably just watch the trailers like the rest of us and give the movie the old stamp that we would expect the movie to be. And that's probably why we get so many trailer outros that say that this film has not yet been rated. Because they're watching these movies at the same speed as we are. And why not? All they're doing is watching 2 or 3 movies a week and stamping a letter grade on it. And I'm sure the MPAA is a committee of people. And so if a movie comes out that you don't want to watch, you can just pass it over to your peer or to the interns. But the real takeaway here is that the system is not just flawed. It's trying to do something virtually impossible. And it's been doing it since literally 1922, over 100 years now. They take all these wildly different types of content and boil it all down to one letter. And maybe that worked for a time, but now as genres and styles and tones are expanding so rapidly, I think we need to start looking into a new system. Like, if your job is to tell people what kinds of people this movie was made for, then you need to split the PG-13 movie up into 1 or 2 different grades. Like, even when my kids were young, I had no problem taking them to see Ghostbusters Afterlife. But I am not about to show them The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which is PG-13. Or to put it into a closer perspective, Bumblebee has the same letter grade as Swim Fan. Project Hail Mary, the most family-friendly of family-friendly films, has the same letter grade as The Sixth Sense. There could be a situation where kids say, I saw Project Hail Mary, that was PG-13. They're streaming on the computer and they're, oh, The Sixth Sense, that sounds cute. Oh, I wonder if there's a cute little alien in that one too. PG-13. Like, as a family, we all just watched The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And for some reason, the MPAA and Disney had no problem letting Star-Lord scream the F word to Mantis for her to get in the fucking car. I still think that's weird that that's where Marvel decided to play their F-bomb. Now, to be fair, most children grow up in households where the parents curse. Sorry, Felix, that's you. I try not to go overboard, but I don't think a lot of parents are of that same mindset. I think they just do it without even thinking because it's probably not a big deal to them. And to get back to what's scary, I tell you, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark should be rated R, if not NC-17, because of the snakes. I am terrified of snakes. So why is that PG? What about people who are afraid of trees? They're gonna see the wild robot and they're gonna have nightmares forever. Or people that have a fear of magic. Like Frozen is gonna traumatize the hell out of them. You see what I mean? Fear is so subjective. One critic who reviewed Hoppers said that he actually appreciated the cartoon style of that movie because he had a fear of frogs, as do I.
I suffer from a wicked case of rhinidophobia, which is a fear of frogs, a mortal terror, actually.
And so the frogs then weren't scary. If they had made realistic looking frogs, I would not have been able to get through Hoppers simply out of fear. Nor would I be able to watch The Muppets. So to close up shop, here's a few ideas I came up with that would be a much more informative way to communicate what movies have in store for their audiences, particularly families. Because instead of just complaining, I actually came up with some ideas that I think can be an improvement on the system we have now. The first idea I came up with is content breakdown, kind of like a nutrition label. Instead of one letter, you get a breakdown. So violence is 6 out of 10, language 8 out of 10, scare factor 7 out of 10, sexual content 3 out of 10. And that way you then get to decide what matters the most. Pro tip, IMDb actually uses this system on their website. And I refer to it constantly. When I'm checking to see if I could take my kids to a certain movie, I just want to see one category to be 0 out of 10. I don't really care about most of them. But there's this one category that I don't want my kids to be exposed to. So as long as that's a 0 and everything else is like 6 or 7, then fair game. My kids are going to have a movie day. Another idea, it's rather simple. Age recommendation, like a tag. Simple and effective. Recommended for ages 10 and up. That movie would very certainly be PG-13. See how the ages are way off? Then you could tag it with strong language, fantasy violence, scary imagery, so it leaves no guesswork. Now, of course, the issue with this one is that each kid is different. I started my kids out pretty young with some scary and violent content, so they've never had nightmares even when I upped the intensity level for them. But we do know kids who are their ages currently who would never be able to sit through what my kids watch. I like this idea. Add an intensity meter. This one is long overdue. The meter would just be calm, tense, frightening, nightmarish. Because if we're honest, that matters more than a single word. And I'd even add to that the duration of how long each of those metrics lasts. So for instance, you look at Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs are only chasing and eating people for like 13 or 15 minutes out of that 2-hour movie. But then you watch something like Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, and you cannot get a moment of rest from all the intensity in that movie from start to finish. So duration plays a big part in this as well. I like this one. Go the Angel Studios route. They've just been making some good movies. Let the audience weigh in. And so like after the release of the movie, you would have on the movie's website or I don't know, somewhere, you would advertise that parents suggest this for ages 11 and up. And then like the most common concern is scary scenes. But what's the scary scene of? Is it ghosts? Is it zombies? Vampires? Trees? Like that matters. I'll let my kids watch some pretty intense stuff, but I don't think they're yet at the level of zombie stuff. You know what I mean? And in this scenario, you're getting real world feedback, not just a sounding board from a committee. For me, Common Sense Media was a really reliable source when deciding to take my young kids to see movies way back in the day. But a word of caution, Common Sense Media does tend to over-exaggerate some things. Like, for instance, I'll never forget reading what parents had to say about Jim Carrey's The Grinch. I don't know if it was this one parent or if it was a whole bunch of them, but they rated that movie at the highest intensity level possible simply because the Grinch is shown chewing on glass in one scene of the movie. They said that was the most vile, disgusting thing. So you just got to take that with a grain of salt. All in all, the issue we have with the system today is that it pretends that the content is not subjective, when in fact, all art is almost by definition subjective. And in today's world, people don't need less information. We just need more honest and direct information. If the goal is to actually help families make better choices for movie night, then the system shouldn't decide for them. It should inform them. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I will see you in the next video. But I'll never forget the most annoying G-rated, but I'll never forget when I can't talk. Contrary to what people probably believe, movies don't just